Hello you guys, and welcome back to another video. And please let's ignore this hair situation that is going on right now, because I swear to god I haven't cut my hair for 3 months. And anyways, as you might be able to tell by the title, today we're going to be doing a full face of Ofra cosmetics, and along the way I'm going to review some of the products in their lines. I would really appreciate if you guys hit the subscribe button and the bell notification button to be notified whenever I upload a video, which is rarely, but I think it's still worth it. Hey you guys, before we get into the video, I just wanted to do a quick disclaimer and mention what's happening around the world right now with the whole BLM movement. It's been a while since the movement started, and I feel like people are starting to care less and less about the movement. And I still want to remind you guys that there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of things you can do to really help make an impact and make change. So I'm gonna leave a few links on the description where you're gonna be able to find information so you can educate yourself, and also some links for some petitions and some organizations that you can help support. So thank you so much guys, and I hope you enjoy the video. So I feel like if you've been in the beauty community for a few years, you've definitely heard about Ofra Cosmetics. I feel like they were a brand that a few years ago was very hyped up by some YouTubers, and nowadays they have like a lot of products. Like, I was surprised when I went to their website and saw the variety and like the amount of different products they have. It is like absolutely crazy. They have products I never knew they even existed, never had heard of. Nonetheless, I'm still very excited to try them all. Okay, so my eyes are primed, and let's go into the first product, which is the Ofra Pro palette, and this is the Bright Addiction palette. It comes with 12 shades, and it comes in like this carton sleeve, and then it opens to look like this. But overall, I feel like this palette was really like the best way to really put the Ofra formula to the test and see if their eyeshadow formula really is good, because I feel like neutrals are not that very hard to make, but when it comes to bright shades, it's a little harder. The palette retails on Ofra's website for $99 US, so it's like a very expensive palette, like $99 US for 12 shadows. I will say the pans are pretty big, but I will say $99 US for this palette is a little bit steep. I mean, $99 US is like almost like Natasha Denona pricing, and I don't think Ofra is that luxury, so that's a little weird. So to try and use all of the shades in the palette, I was thinking of doing like 2 different eyes, one being more warm, colorful shadows, while the other one being more cool tone, colorful shadows, and then try to introduce the black and the brown there somehow. Okay, let's start with the pink shade. There's not a lot of kickback in the pan, and we're just gonna place it here. Oh, also I forgot to tell you, I prime my eyes with the P. Louise eyeshadow base, which is the one I use the most, so I feel the most comfortable judging the quality of the shadows while using that base. There is the pink shadow. It's actually pretty bright. I'm actually quite surprised with the pigmentation. It really packs a punch. I was not expecting that. Let me see how it blends out a little bit. The shadow has blended really easily, like it has taken no time to blend, and it didn't lose any of its initial impact and pigment. After blending, it still looks as bright, so I'm actually pretty impressed. Let's now dip into the red shade and see how that performs. Actually, what I'm seeing is that the red shade kind of translates more into like an orange shade. It's almost like this like tomato-y shade. It's actually really pretty and very unique. Okay, so there we go. The red shade next to the pink one definitely looks a little more toned down, but I think it's not like that it's missing pigment. I just think it's the tone of the shadow itself. It's definitely a more like red shade with like a lot of orange in it. Okay, so now let's go into the yellow shade, and I feel like the yellow shade, it looks really pretty on the pan, but we'll see how it performs. So far so good with the yellow base. I will say it's a little bit lighter in tone than I would like it to. On the pan it looks a little bit more like rich, almost like slightly mustardy yellow. On the eye it goes more like light yellow, so I kind of wish the base of it was a little darker, but the quality itself of the shade, once again, very pigmented. It went on the eye very easily, and it's also blending out very easily. I think what we're gonna do is add a little bit of brown here on the inner corner to deepen it up a little bit. Okay, so let's just pack the brown ever so slightly into this area of the eye to kind of like deepen up the crease. And then let's just work on blending that brown onto the shades around it. Okay, so the brown worked. I mean, I'm not mind blown by it. It's a brown shade. And now I'm just gonna slightly cut the crease. And now with a flat brush, we're gonna dip into the shade Melon, which is the only kind of like shimmery shade in the palette. Okay, that's what it looks like on the brush. And we're gonna get it wet. Let's grab some more eyeshadow. This time let's not wet it and see if it works, because like it was not giving me a lot of pigment or payoff or anything. I'll be honest, it really is not the most stunning shade ever at all. It's very subtle, doesn't have a lot of pigment, doesn't have a lot of shimmer. Later on, after we're finished with the rest of the face, I'll apply the purple shade underneath the eye, but for now let's move on to the other eye. Okay, so now for the other eye, let's start with one of the blue shades, which is called Bright Blue, even though it looks like the deeper blue out of the two blues. This one has a little bit more kickback than the others in the pan, but it also seems more pigmented. And just like we did with the pink, let's pack it onto the inner side of the eye. And voila, there you go, there's the blue shade. Once again, very, very pigmented. And now let's see how it blends. Okay, so there's the blue shadow blended. And I'll be honest, it did not blend as easily as the shadows we've previously used in this eye. I'm assuming it's because it's blue, and blues are a little bit harder to formulate, and they usually give you a harder time blending. So I'm gonna assume that's what it is, but nonetheless, it's still a beautiful color, and it's still packed a lot of punch when it comes to pigment and color. So I'm pretty happy about that. And now let's dive into the other blue, which is next to it, which is called Deep Blue. So apparently this is the deeper one. Let me show you guys. So this is the shade we went in with now, which is called Bright Blue, and now we're going with Deep Blue, even though this one to me seems brighter than this one. But okay, so there you go, there's the shadow packed in. Once again, pigment perfect. It went in super pigmented. I barely had to build it on. So now let's see how it blends. Okay, so there's the deep blue shade blended, and honestly, this shade of blue is making this other one look like trash, because this one, not only it packed a punch pigment-wise, but it's also blending super easily. Like it blended once again like these did, very effortlessly, very smoothly. And now let's dip into the kind of like turquoise blue, which is called Ocean Blue. It's this shade right here. So let's see how it looks on the eye. Ooh. Oh wow, okay. I don't think I need to really say anything about this shade and its pigmentation. I mean, bitch, I'm obsessed with that shade. I just want more. Anyways, so now let's dip into a little bit of the black, very so slightly. And let's just use it in the inner corner to kind of deepen the inner corner a little bit. Okay, so there's the black in the inner corner, and what I really like is that it blended out very easily for being a black, and it doesn't have a very blue base, which I find a lot of black shades, for some reason, eyeshadow black shades have a blue base to them, so especially when you blend them out, they end up looking a little blue. But this black shade almost kind of like has a more gray base to it, and when you blend it out, it just looks more grayish rather than bluish. But it's still blended really, really well with all the other blue shades around it. So I'm really, really happy with how it's performing. And now, just like with the other eye, let's cut the crease ever so slightly, and I'll be back. Okay, so now, we don't have any other shimmery shades on the palette that we can use on the lid, but I feel like amongst all this blue, we could use with a little bit of a pop of green. So, I'm gonna go in with, what is the name of it? Bright Green, which is this shade right here. It's this kind of like lime green kind of shade. It's going on pretty bright actually, and it's actually pretty buildable. Like it wasn't the brightest at first, but after packing it a little bit in, it's actually building up really, really nicely. Okay, there we go, and I'm actually really in love with the shade. I think it's so pretty. So the first item we have for the face is the Ofra Primer Silicone Gel Primer, And to be honest, I wanted to go for the Cool as a Cucumber primer, which is like the green one, because I had heard a few YouTubers rave about it before. They mentioned it was more of a hydrating formula, and even though I have oily skin, I still wanted to try it because I think it's the primer I've heard the most about. However, I saw that the third ingredient was coconut oil, and that's a big no-no for my oily skin. If coconut oil gets on my skin, it's gonna clog me up and I'm gonna get a lot of pimples, and it was a no-no. But I was pretty surprised with the ingredient list because silicone is actually not that high on the list. Like, I thought it was gonna have dimethicone as the first ingredient, like many silicone primers do. However, the first ingredients like water, glycerin, aloe vera extract are pretty still nourishing for the skin and still pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with it. It also has other ingredients at more towards the end of the list that are also pretty skincare ingredients. And the last ingredient is sodium hyaluronate, which if you don't know, that's hyaluronic acid. So overall, even though this has a little bit of silicone in it, it's actually still pretty nourishing and hydrating to the skin, and I'm pretty impressed. It doesn't have any fragrances in it either, which is really good for the skin. It retails for $20 US, but again, I got this on sale for 50% discount. And the packaging is actually pretty cool. So it comes out like this, and then you have like the normal bottle, and it has like this safety lock. It feels kind of cool. It feels like kind of like a little bit like a gelatin product, like one of those jelly primers or stuff like that. Ooh, okay. It went on really smoothly, but now it's like hardening, and it's almost kind of like getting a little bit sticky. Like more than stickiness, it's like a grip. Like I cannot slide my hands through it as easily now, which that might be actually good because it might grip onto the foundation pretty well. So now let's go into the foundation, and the foundation is the Absolute Cover Foundation, which is made with silk peptides. So the foundation itself, this is like the only product I think that comes in a glass bottle. The primer was in a plastic bottle, but this is a glass bottle, and it's pretty heavy. It feels quite luxurious. It's supposed to be a long wear, medium to full coverage foundation with some skin loving ingredients, and it retails for $40 US. So it's pretty hefty. It's pretty up there. It's around like the Sephora kind of price range. So the foundation shade range is a little bit lackluster, I'll be honest. There's only 21 shades, I think. Also, the shades are just go by numbers, so it's like 0 point something, 1, 2, 3, and there's really not a lot of like definition as to which undertones each foundation has. So not only the shade range itself is not very expansive when it comes to like from light to dark, but also like when it comes to undertones, it's not the greatest. And for $40 US and like a pretty big brand as Ofra is, I would expect way better. The foundation I've gotten is in the shade 1, which is one of the lightest. I think it's the third lightest shade. On a first look, it almost looks kind of like my skin tone. It actually looks like a pretty good match. But when I first got the package, I swatched this just to see how it would look on my skin, and it oxidized. So let's just put it on my face and let's see if it oxidizes the way it oxidized when I swatched it. It actually smells really good. I'm also applying this side of the face with a sponge, a beauty blender, and I'm gonna apply the other side of the face with a brush. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera because of all the lights, and it kind of just lightens up everything, and it kind of like diffuses everything a little bit. But when I first applied the foundation to my face, it was like almost a perfect match. It looked exactly like my skin, and I don't know if you now guys can tell the difference from one side to the other. This side is more like yellowish, and it's oxidizing and getting like darker. Okay, so now let's go into the other side of the face, and I'm gonna use the Real Techniques 200 face brush. Okay, right off the bat with the brush, it has way more coverage. Oh, now I'm going over the whole face with the sponge, because I do feel like I do still prefer a little bit the finish that the sponge gives a little bit more. But I definitely would say if you want more full coverage, go with a brush. And if anything, then go over top with a little bit of a sponge. For a more full coverage matte foundation, it's actually looking pretty good. It definitely has this blurring quality to it, and I feel like on camera it's gonna look really, really good. So that I'm aware, they don't have any concealers out yet, at least by checking on the website and checking everywhere, I didn't find any. So we're gonna go just with my Born This Way multi-use concealer, which is my favorite concealer right now. Okay, so there's the concealer applied, and before we move on to powder, I want to try this Ofra Skin Sculpting Wand. This is the only product I've bought that is still in the like old Ofra packaging, and to be honest, thank God they rebranded and thank God they changed their packaging because this feels cheap. But nonetheless, what matters the most is the product inside of it, so let's give it a whirl. So I'm gonna go in with a brush and try to blend that out. This might be unfortunately too light of a shade, simply because the foundation has oxidized so much and changed color so much that it just is not deep enough, I feel like, anymore. But the shade itself is like the perfect contour shade, and that's why I was kind of like drawn to this product. I just prefer a shade like this that is cool tone because it's what really helps create that illusion of a shadow on your face. But yeah, the product itself is very creamy on the face and it's blending very, very well. I'm using this before powder just in case, because with cream products you never know how they might blend on top of powder. So when I was looking for setting powders, the retailer from which I bought it from did not have the light shade. And when I went to check how the medium shade was, I immediately noticed it was way too dark for me and I was not going to be able to pull it off. So what I came out with was this. I don't know if you can tell that against my face, but it is very yellow. And I was not expecting that because it says translucent powder. Like it's a translucent highlighting powder with a banana tint to it. This is probably going to darken my under eyes a little bit because it does seem a little bit darker than my concealer. So I'm probably going to have to set my whole face with it so that everything gets kind of like equalized. Powder retails for $23 US, and I would say that's quite a little bit because this is very little. Like it doesn't have a lot of product in it. It has 6 grams of product in it, which is 0.21 ounces. It is not a lot of product, so it's quite pricey for the amount you get. Something I really did enjoy that I noticed immediately after I opened it was that the scent it has, it's like very reminiscent of banana candies. It is very soft. It is not very strong or overpowering. I want to make sure I'm applying just a very light layer to try and avoid it making myself look yellow. So you guys can probably tell from one side to the other. This side is definitely darker now. It's definitely very mattifying though. I will say that if you're someone that has dry skin, you'll probably not enjoy this powder because as soon as I put it on my skin is like matte. Like any shine that there was to it, gone. I don't know if I love it enough to justify the price of it though, for the like little amount you get. Now, for one of the products I'm the most excited to try, this is the Island Time Face Palette. Even though I'm really excited to try this product, I wanted to quickly mention something. And this is because, remember I said that the old packaging they had, overall with most of their products, is quite bad and it feels cheap. And I definitely really enjoyed the image that they've created with the whole rebrand. And most of the packaging looks very luxurious. I really like the design of it. However, this is the perfect example on how the new Ofra packaging in some of their products can be extremely excessive. And this is because this comes with this like stupid thing that slides off, which, okay, I don't mind it. It's cardboard. It's not the worst for the environment. But then on top of this, there's this box. Then you open, and inside this massive, super thick box, you find the palette inside, which is not nearly as thick as the box. So all of this, by the way, is plastic. All of this goes to waste. And it is very, very wasteful, and this long term can be really, really harmful to the environment. So now, when it comes to the palette itself, it is very pretty. It once again keeps that like very sleek white design, but this has like this very pretty like neon 80s video game looking design on the front. And it feels very heavy, like it feels very luxurious, I need to say. This is the palette on the inside, and this is the Island Time palette. So this is a blush and highlighter palette. So there are 4 blushes on the sides and 1 highlighter on the center. The blushes are in Mai Tai, Punch, Cosmo, and Bellini. Actually, okay, I don't think the shades are actually properly put, because this is definitely not the Bellini shade. But anyways, those are the 4 blushes, and then the highlighter in the middle is the highlighter Bali, which they also have as an individual highlighter. So the palette itself retails for $49 US, which again, very expensive, I think. The pens are not that big, so I'm like iffy about the price tag. However, I bought it for a 50% sale, and I'm looking right now on the Ofra website, the official website. They have it for $29 US instead of $49 US, so that's a $20 savings. And I do think for $29 US, this palette seems to be worth it. But let's see if the formulas are actually worth it. So let's put it to test. And I think we're gonna use these 2 shades on the top. I'm gonna mix a little bit of each. I do love me some blush. I might have gone a little bit overboard, but I'm okay with it. Also, since we don't have bronzer, let's just like overdo it a little bit with the blush. But I'm just gonna work on blending it in. And the shades are beautiful, and they actually work really well together, because it creates almost like this like peachy pink warm shade. I feel like a less is more approach with these blush formulas might be better, where you kind of like try to go build it up. I'm gonna go dip into a little bit of the Bali shade and kind of use it as more of like a blush topper to just add a little bit of luminosity to the blush. Okay, so there's the palette in action, and I actually really enjoy the colors. I feel like the color selection, it is magnificent. I think Bali actually looks really, really pretty, like very softly glazed all over the cheeks. Now, for one of the stars of the show, one of the products that I feel like Ofra is the most known for, highlighter. I was always curious about trying one of the Nikkietutorials highlighters, which is Glazed Donut. So this is what we're gonna try today. Glazed Donut is this very kind of like pale, silvery champagne shade that is very, very blinding. Once again, the compact is very luxurious, feels nicely weighted. So before we apply the highlighter, I'm just gonna wet my face quickly. And I'm gonna grab a highlighter brush, and I'm gonna try not to get a lot so we can just see how intense this is. It is intense. And I like literally have barely touched the pen. And it looks good. Like, it's not leaving a white cast on my face, because that's what I was afraid of, especially with this like oxidizing ass foundation. This is like literally Facetune. We're gonna put a little bit on the forehead, because again, that powder was very, very mattifying, and I don't mind that because I have oily skin, but just to give a little bit of sheen to the skin. Oh, and I almost forgot, the highlighter retails for $35 US, but I definitely feel like it's worth it. So the pan you get is very, very big, and the highlighter is just beautiful. It really, really is. And now we're gonna go back to finishing the lower eye. So for the lower right eye, we're gonna dip into the purple shade, which is named Deep Purple, which is this shade. So there we go, there's a purple. I will say this purple kind of like reads a little bit more blue, to me it seems at least, because it's a very, very cool tone purple. But it is still very pretty, and for not having any eyeshadow base down there and working on top of powder, it still went in very, very pigmented, so I'm very, very happy about that. So for the left under eye, we're gonna use the last eyeshadow of the palette that we haven't used yet, which is called Lime Green, and it is this green shade. And wow, once again, immediate pigment. This is wow. So here are the eyes done. I just added a pair of lashes. I lined the lash line with some black shadow from the palette. And that's the eyes done. What do you guys think? I'm actually really, really happy with how the eyes turned out. So now for the last product, it's obviously for the lips, and it is their very iconic, long-lasting liquid lipstick. I feel like this plus their highlighters are like their most like popular items or their best sellers. So the liquid lipsticks retail for $20 US, which is a little bit high up there, I feel like. And this is in the shade Paulo. And it's just this very, very beautiful nude. So without further ado, let's apply it onto the lips and see how it performs. Ooh, wait, it smells quite good. It smells like tropically coconutty. So there we go, there's a shade completely swatched on the lips. I will say it is a little bit lighter than what I thought it was gonna look like. I thought it was gonna be a little bit darker with this shade of foundation, which is a little bit darker than my skin tone. I would say I would not wear this by itself. I would definitely line my lips. But it is a beautiful color, and I will also say that the formula so far feels super comfortable. It went super creamy on the lips and very full coverage too. Like I only had to dip a second time because I screwed up, and I don't know if you guys can tell, I overdrew my lips way too much. So let's do a quick rundown through the products so that I can give my opinions on them. So the first thing we use, the eyeshadow palette. The eyeshadow palette, I was actually really pleasantly surprised with it. I've never heard anyone on YouTube talking about Ofra Cosmetics eyeshadows. I don't know if that's only me. Is this worth $99 US? Absolutely fucking not. I don't ever think a palette will be worth that much, especially for 12 shades. And yes, they're big pans, but it's 12 shades. Like, for $99 US. If you can get this with like a 50% discount or less, and you're interested in the colors and in the color scheme, I would say you won't regret it. I think the quality of the shadows overall was really good. If I could change something, it would be this shimmery shade. I wish it would have either been like a white matte shade. I think that would have been cool to have a white matte shade, or it would have been this exact same shade but in a matte formula instead of a shimmer. The baby blue shade, it was so pigmented, so blendable, so beautiful. The lime greeny shade, and just overall, like, the palette itself is actually really, really good. So the second item is the silicone primer, and the primer I'm really pleasantly surprised with, because when I bought it, I thought it was just going to be a basic silicone primer, and turns out it's not. It actually has a lot of beneficial ingredients for your skin, which is amazing since primer is the first layer you're putting on your skin before makeup. And I love the fact that it had this grip to it. It was not a stick, it was not sticky. To me, that possibly means that this is really gonna help foundations and concealers really stick onto the skin and be just way more long lasting than they actually are. Okay, so when it comes to the foundation, I still have to try it more. My skin right now is doing really bad. I have a lot of pimples, I've gotten a lot of texture, a lot of scars. So I don't feel comfortable fully judging the foundation at the moment. But I do think for how bad my skin is doing right now, the foundation did not do bad at all. But overall, I just think it's a nice foundation. It's nothing to rave about. I don't think it's worth $40 US. Then for the banana powder, I think I don't know, I'm really struggling with the banana powder right now. Okay, so when I was applying mascara to my bottom lashes, I screwed up and I got like mascara on both of my bottom eyes. So then I tried to put a little bit of concealer on top and then powder back again. And this time I used a sponge to pack in a little bit of powder. Just the yellowness, it's just even more present now. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but like, it doesn't look amazing. So I feel like it's not the greatest powder. It's also quite expensive for how much you get. When it comes to the contour, like cream, I actually really enjoyed it. I think it looks so good and so natural. It blended super easily. It was super creamy. Like, it was just a very effortless way of contouring my face, and I just really liked it. I also really like the shade of it. Then when it comes to the face palette and with the blushes and the one highlighter, I really love the color scheme of it. Like, I love it. Again, similar with the eyeshadow palette, I think it might be a little bit too expensive if you buy it full price, but if you can find it on sale, I actually think it might be a good deal. And now to the iconic highlighter. The highlighter is beautiful, and I didn't go very hard on it. I tried to go very softly. You know how blinding these can get, and as I said, my skin is not doing the best, so I don't want to emphasize a lot of texture. But even after applying very little, it still looks very, very beautiful. It doesn't leave a white, icy cast on my skin. And then finally the lipstick. I mean, this shade São Paulo, I'm in love with. But they have a lot of shades that are super beautiful. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. If you want to go follow me at my Instagram, at makeup.by.alejandro. I'll leave it somewhere in the screen. I post a lot of looks there, and I tend to post there more often than I do on YouTube. So yeah. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you on the next video. Bye!